Hey there, it's Angie Bird, and welcome to another episode of the Midlife Magic and Mayhem podcast. Today's conversation is with Daniela Schroeder. Dani has spent her life studying multiple forms of holistic healing, from nutrition to intelligent movement methods to the best way to support clients with their individual well-being, namely through reflexology and gyrokinesis, which both relieve the physical, mental, and emotional body of pain, stress, and anxiety by calming the nervous system. Dani understands how thoughts and feelings manifest in the body, and for this reason, she is gifted at understanding clients' individual needs. She focuses on what is at the heart of the matter, allowing her clients to regain inner strength and clear, stagnant energy. Today, we talk about movement, specifically gyrokinesis, and why it's so important at any age, but definitely during midlife. Daniela also shares her story about feeling isolated and alone when the symptoms of menopause started creeping into her life, and the tools she used and still uses to break the spell and move into wellness. I know we could all probably learn a lot about these breaking into the wellness during menopause. We also talk about one super simple practice that can instantly shift how you feel and takes less than 1 minute. So tune in and find out. This was such a fun conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. I know I did. Hi, Daniela. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Angie. Thank you very much for inviting me and spending this time with me. So exciting. Seems like I'm in your living room.
I wish. That would be nice.
That would be great.
The power and miracle of technology.
It is, but like kind of then you can dream and then you can manifest your dreams, and then it's like kind of one day it will happen and I will visit you.
Indeed. Come to Colorado. Now, I always like to get context as I'm starting these episodes. So tell me, where are you? Like physically, where are you and what do you see?
So I am in Charleston, South Carolina. And right now I'm looking out of the window and I see the trees. Today is a little bit grayish. Usually it's kind of lots of blue sky here in South Carolina. And we had kind of cooler temperature, not compared to Colorado for sure. And we have it already kind of like, as you can see, it's t-shirt weather during the day. So it's like always this switch back and forth.
Yeah. So are you in your house in Charleston?
I'm in my house right now. Yeah, I tried to find a quiet room because we have a 6-month-old puppy and he's all over and barking and so on. So if there is something like enough distracting, then it might be him. He wants to say hi.
Hey, that is so okay. That is one thing that I am really wanting to. One of my intentions with this show is to be in real time, in the real world, in real life with real people. So like if there's dogs or babies or kids or workmen in your house or a truck that goes by or a siren, it's like, it's life, it's just happening. It's no big deal. Like we're not going for perfection here. This is just real living. So if the dog comes in, you can just put him up to the camera and we'll say hi.
Oh yeah, then he wants to have the phone and all of that. So kind of like he's sleeping right now. So keep the fingers crossed for that. So that's great. Okay. But thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you again so much for being here. And you are a menopause healing coach and I hope I'm saying this correctly, gyrokinesis
teacher,
that's right. Facilitator, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Great. So tell me about you, Daniela. Tell me your story. How did you get involved with what you're doing and how did you get here? What makes you you?
So first of all, gyrokinesis, because lots of people don't know it, it's a movement practice where you move from the spine to create more space and more length, and you will feel energized and centered and calm after you practice it. So that's kind of like the little dense kind of like make it a, so to say, definition. And So the background for me and why I'm calling myself menopause healing coach is my own story for sure. And it's struggling with that and feeling alone for now, I would say over 10 years now. And it's kind of like you feel, you get brain fog, and then you read about it, but then you think, oh no, it's not me. And then you think about, oh, is it early Alzheimer's? And I was so good in numbers and names. And then you need to ask people twice or three times of their name and all of this. And you feel embarrassed, and you try to kind of like, okay, I'm not going in this big social events anymore because it's annoying. And then you feel isolated because you isolated yourself. Then you feel in the mornings when you wake up, you don't feel the thrive anymore and all of this. So all these kind of symptoms where I felt myself, and I wanted to do some practice. I wanted to move myself because I always moved. And besides just running, there was nothing really what kind of like satisfied me and what was made for my own body. So I had for over 20 years shoulder issues. I had kind of like an injured knee. So I tried yoga, I tried Pilates and all of that, but holding the poses and being kind of like somewhere where it's like kind of, okay, you need to be there, you need to arrive somewhere. And like, kind of, I know there was a lot of modification, and I don't want to kind of like offend anybody in the yoga world, but I felt never the ease and the depth of it. So, and I always was frustrated. Okay, I'm always was kind of like giving up on that. And then I came across the method itself. It's called gyrotonic expansion system, because there is so much more than just gyrokinesis. Gyrokinesis is the purest form because you do it for yourself, with yourself, on a stool, on a mat, or in standing. So it's basically you need your body and just rarely tools. So yeah, and I found that, and it has a lot of breathing technique too, but it's not always sit down and breathe. It's included. So, and there is a lot of modifications. So you go where you feel you can go, as much as far as you can go. So, and over time, looking back, I'm doing this now for 4 or 5 years as becoming a teacher, going to the teacher trainings and all of that, going to intense times and less intense times. I feel I'm way stronger. I'm way more open because I'm tall. It's like kind of always this hunched over. And I feel lots of people are this nowadays with computers, with phones. We have the tendency to look up instead of, that's what we're made for. So I feel I know when I need to move because my body tells me. And I'm for sure over the time, I was getting better also in listening to my language, my body language, so to say. So it's from my own experience where I thought, I don't see myself as a teacher, but it's so, I wanted to kind of like spread it into the world because I feel there are so many, especially women out who are not connected to their body, especially in that age. They're not kind of like, they don't know what to do. They do their own routine, but they don't feel satisfied with that. So I feel it's like kind of changing the mindset and also, but still moving and feeling good and strong. So that's kind of like, and I added my own practice, like kind of all the things which I found satisfying for me to getting back out into the world for shining again. These are kind of like my toolboxes, which I kind of like have it all together, collected, and have it in the pocket here or here, whatever you want to have.
Right. So in this toolbox, so the gyrokinesis, the expansion system, like even the words of that, like I can feel that in my body, like the possibility there. And you and I agree very much around movement and what is available there. And especially as, as we're getting older and our bodies are changing, our minds are changing, our psychology, our body chemistry, there's so much that's in transition. And I think sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes the tendency can be to become more still, become more sedentary and I have no problem with slowing down, but I think if we can start to move that tendency from at this age starting to slow too much, to slow down too much. Words, see? This is what happens. Words.
I
But
speak in the same language as you.
right? See, you know what I'm saying. But we can become too stagnant, is what I'm trying to say. And so to keep movement alive in our bodies helps to shift things. It helps to keep us radiant and thriving and alive. And we can still have stillness practice, right? We can still have, if you have meditation in your life or anything else. Of course, I believe in moving meditation, but really
100%.
keeping that movement, however it looks, that has some flow, some freedom, some, it doesn't have to be, running 50 miles, and it can, right? But keeping some form of that flow sort of movement in our lives, I think, is so, so, so important. And like you said, it helps you tune in and tap into the body's wisdom. So we can hear the language, we can hear our own intuition, and it takes really knowing how to tap in. So how does gyrokinesis do that? Like, what's the format or the framework that allows us to really become more tuned into the body?
So first of all, I feel it's just by being aware of, for example, when you do it on a stool, on the sitting position, it's kind of like we sit, but we are not aware how is our spine, because it's all about, like, kind of, I feel it as a center. The spine is the center. So my arm movement can be my arm movement, but it's not, it's the movement comes basically from the spine. So you are kind of connected. You have to have your feet on the floor. You feel your whole body, even if in sitting position. So you're not kind of like leaning there, you kind of like have an upright spine. And that can be sometimes exhausting. But if we're not staying in this position, like I say, so it's a constant fluid movement, and we move in all directions. We move, for example, our arms up there and the other arms down. So it's that always this opposition of movement. And like kind of you can move in spiraling. I move this forward and this backward. So it can be, it's a constant movement in all directions. And from there, like I said, there are so many different breathing patterns. You know this, but and we integrate it. It's almost like kind of, it's exploring and it's fun. It can be fun. You're not integrating the breathing in the first class or in the first two classes, because most of the time at the beginning, it can be overwhelming. If you don't have a dance background or something with choreography, what is she doing? Where is she going? But I'm always inviting people to tune into their body, not looking at me, listen to my words, and how does that match into your own body? So it is, and we have, and in yoga, you have this all. It's kind of like, it's the area underneath between your navel and your pubic bone. It's the center of creation. It's where all it starts. And I'm using this as, or not I'm using it as a teacher. That's what gyrokinesis' most important part is, to use that for movement, for energy creating, for, you create, so to say, heat, and then move it into the whole body. So you're always connecting, and you're never even sitting. You're always using your legs, even if they're just standing, because you have to have strong legs to have an upright spine.
Yeah, having everything originate with the spine, I think, is really fascinating, because I know for myself, I mean, if you're just listening to this and you don't have the video, like, I'm slumping over right now. Like, we all can find ourselves slumped over at the computer and standing around, hip out, bag on a shoulder, like whatever it is, like our posture has become really compromised, I think, throughout probably the past 10, 20, 50, even 100 years, like, as humans
Agreed.
have become more sedentary, as we have stopped being outdoors as much, as we've, worked in offices and all these types of things, our posture and our spine has really become, again, compromised. So I'm fascinated with the idea and the concept that this practice is really originating from the spine. Do you know why this particular practice is focused so much from that place? Like, how did this practice, do you know how this practice came to be? Like, how did it start?
Yeah, so the inventor is Julia Horvath, and he was a dancer, and he invented it. I hope I will right, kind of like 40 or 50 years ago. And so he's a Hungarian, Romanian dancer, but he danced in the US and New York, and he danced in Hungary, I think, too, at the opera. So he was a professional ballet dancer. So then he got hurt, and then he kind of like needs to stop dancing. And then nothing of recovery helped him. So he found out of like, he went into for meditation and for yoga and like kind of for swimming and so on. And he created that by himself to recover from him for himself. So I think he even hurt his back. That's kind of like where I don't know 100%. But from there, he also, like I say, it's like called expansion system because it has a lot of machines too. And that's kind of like, so I'm having, it's called a pulley tower, and you have a bench and you have a tower and you have weights and you have straps. You're not using the weights to kind of like, to pump how teenagers and lots of people are doing it. It's more of as a resistant, as a helper. Because if you do gyrokinesis on your stool and you have like kind of, let's say your hips are decompromised, you can't move like this far. It can be sometimes really frustrating to kind of like see how beautiful it can look like, because we all thrive for how it looks like instead of how it feels. So for the tower, you have the support. It's kind of the system is, and the principles are the same. It's just different exercises, but you can use both. So I have the tower at home. So he invented this tower by himself. He's really creative, and he's like kind of, I think, mid of 70s. That's what he is right now. But so he has all the classes. And first of all, the first, I think 10 or 15 years, it was just called yoga for dancers, because most of the time it was the dancers who need the flexibility, even if they are flexible, but there are areas they're not flexible at all. So they need to get that fluid in there. So, and then he realized it's kind of like, oh yeah, why not? Like kind of, I say it in my words. That was not his words. It's like kind of, why not for everybody? Because everybody, kind of like so translated.
Right. It's fascinating. So how is this different from Pilates? Because Pilates was also developed by a man who, I don't know if he was a dancer or not, but I believe it was for his own therapeutic benefit, maybe. I mean, but it sounds to me like there are some similarities. So how are they similar and how are they different?
So I feel, first of all, Pilates has also mat work and has have like kind of a tool, so to say, or I don't know what it's called, a carriage, I think. So that's the kind of similarities. And lots of the movement feels like the same, but the intention is different. For Pilates, what I understood is it's strengthening. You kind of like, you go to your hip and to your midterm, and you really kind of like go deep and hold it there. So for gyrokinesis and gyrotonic, you're not holding it. You're constantly moving. You're kind of like expressing it. You're elongating it. It's fluid. It's fluid movement. Right. So it's more of creating space. And I always try to simplify it, and it's not right, but it's like kind of stretching it more. That's how I feel. You still can strengthen, but you have it in a different modality. Sometimes for me, for example, this kind of like holding, and this was too much, too tight. See, I'm already kind of like, for people who don't see me, I'm tightening up my shoulders. It's like kind of, it's tight.
Yeah.
So if I'm opening, it's like kind of, it's more wider. So, and it's the breath can travel more. I don't say that this is bad and this is good. It's just like kind of, I try to compare it, because these questions I get it asked a lot.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, I would imagine that could be a common question. But I really like that approach. It's more, well, not more. It's just it is a fluid. Sounds like it's a fluid practice. It does have more movement in it, more spaciousness, and less of that hold. Which, even in my world, in some of the circles that I travel in, you could even say that that's like a masculine and a feminine energy almost. It's like we have a lot. We know how to hold. We know how to strengthen in our society. Like we know what that feels like. We know what that does. And like you were just saying, it kind of in your own body, you constricted your shoulders, you started to hold tight, right? And there are times and places for that.
Yes.
There's times for that. It's not wrong. And what we what is more available is the complement to that, right? It is the openness, it is the more fluid movement, the flow. Like, I'm a huge proponent of free movement dance without choreography, just going with exactly what's happening in your body and what your body wants to do and the movement it wants to make, and creating that spaciousness. So yeah, I can, yes, kind of see and feel the benefit of that type of approach.
Yeah, it's so beautiful
Even
that,
with using machines, you can even
yeah.
have that available with machines too.
Yeah, it's so beautiful that you compare that kind of like masculine and feminine and this free dance. I feel it's kind of like I almost feel a lot of times going back into childhood kind of like memories, that's what it's stored there, and we have to relearn it. We know it. Kids know it. If we don't restrict them, they know it. They know how to move, what is good for them. If they wanted to move faster, if they want to climb, if they don't feel safe there, they know it. It's like kind of, we just forget about it because everybody tells us the girl needs to be this and the boy needs to be this most of the time, unfortunately.
Yeah. That's, yes, a great point. What a beautiful insight, going back to childhood. How specifically, if you can really speak to how this practice changed you, or what happened for you, because you were mentioning before about your own struggles with menopause and this time of life for upwards of 10 years, and how you're kind of self-isolating and all that. So what about this practice specifically do you feel really helped you shift some of the symptoms, maybe outlook on life? Like, how did that occur for you?
It's kind of like, it's always, you always can see it in retrospective. It's like kind of when you're in there,
Mhm.
you don't feel it, but I feel it's, for me, it's the amazing part of mixture of movement and breathing. So even in the mornings, if I feel like kind of, oh, I don't want to go up, and like kind of, why am I going up? Nobody's interested in me. Nobody's going there. And all of this self-pity and self-thoughts, what you have sometimes if you don't have a good night's sleep. Then I'm going on my stool, and then I'm just doing 5 or 10 minutes, the exercise, like kind of something, just turn into my body and talk myself to some exercises, but I'm not exercising, it's kind of like, and it's just, even sometimes it's just sitting, connecting my feet to the floor, to the earth, ground myself, and kind of like make my spine upright. So just kind of like think about when you sit upright, when you root your sit bones down, and when you kind of think about how every single vertebra can elongate, but just breathing in. And so you create that space, you create it, and it has that ripple effect on your chest, on your breathing, and on your heart. So, and on your mind too. And then kind of like the exhale, you bring it all down again. So it's that flow. So and that's just a little tiny thing. If I'm feeling upset, or if I'm feeling I don't get it this morning, I need to move. And I feel really this openness and this strength. And even if I still have my shoulder, which is bothering me, but I can do exercises, I can strengthen my upper body, I can really feel strong in my body, even if I don't have a six-pack. I don't have to have a six-pack, but and I'm kind of like, I'm thin, it's like kind of, and I don't have this muscular arms, but I feel for myself stronger. And that itself is kind of like make myself be more, okay, let's go out and let's spread it. And sometimes if I'm more getting into this, okay, I'm isolating more, it's like, okay, now you have this. And it always comes, do you want to do, or do you offer gyrokinesis, or can you teach me today? So that's always this, what comes in life back is like, oh yeah, it's a good reminder. Thank you.
Yeah. Two things I heard in that specifically. One, something as simple as sitting up straight. And I'm going to go back to that here in a minute. And the other thing was, even if you like, let's just say that I am a person who exercises, but someone out there listening is like, well, I exercise, I go to the gym, I do, I'm good. Like, I move, I'm good. I don't need this. And there's something about being with yourself intentionally with intentional movement combined with breath that has some sort of meditative, mindful quality as well. So I would say it's an and, it's not an either or, like, oh, well, I exercise, I don't need to do anything else, right? Like this is an and type of thing, right? It's a different type of movement. You get something totally different than you would get going to an exercise class or even going to a yoga class or going to a Pilates session, right? It's a different type of thing. And then again, like, I think that was so fantastic what you were just saying, something as simple as sitting up straight. So I would invite people, even right now, like I just did that while you were talking. I was like kind of slumped down a little bit and then sit up straight wherever you are right now, shoulders back. Think about that. You're speaking to it beautifully about elongating the spine and creating space in between the vertebra and lifting up from the top of the head. Even something as quick and simple as that can make a huge difference. So if we wake up in the morning and we're just like, I don't have it today, I feel like shit, I didn't sleep good, the world is terrible, like, all that negative stuff that can happen and like twist around and cause us to not feel very good. But just even something as simple as that can make a difference. And it doesn't take equipment. It doesn't take time even. It doesn't take anything other than just taking a deep breath and sitting up straight. Like what a
Agree.
simple, beautiful practice.
Yeah, and it is like kind of I'm personally doing it more like a meditative state. And I'm always kind of like, that's why I have my tools, even in gyrokinesis, I have my ideas, I have my teacher training. But on top, if it's a one-on-one or even if it's a class, I see where people are. Is it in the morning? Is it in the afternoon? Is it at night? And like kind of, what do they need? Sometimes they don't need meditation and meditative movement when it's like they're tired already. They will jump off the stool and they will kind of fall asleep. So I need to do something energizing, but still that they connect to themselves. That's kind of like, I feel maybe that's the most essence for me. So I do the movement, like you say, you can sweat. I mean, there is choreography by that and you can go fast and so on. But me personally, not being a dancer, I always had my issues with that. So I have long arms and legs. I always need longer. So that's why I always slowed it down and break it down. And sometimes the slower movement, it's kind of harder because you miss then when you wanted to yawn every fiber, either if it's using the arm to yawn, use the side body, your rib cage to move up. It doesn't matter, or use your legs to feel they are longer, and like kind of you press to your feet so you can create that space in your hips. It's all these kind of little nooks and crannies, but it's beautiful because you say, sometimes I see it as a moving meditation, really, how people can connect, and sometimes you need to kind of like just make them wake up.
That's a great distinction. I'm glad you pointed that out. That you can also use this type of movement to create energy, to create fire, right? If we're feeling sluggish, if you're feeling like you're lacking energy, you can turn it around and do it to where you create energy if that's what's called for in that moment. And knowing the difference, like being able to be with yourself enough to know what you need in that moment, or have someone, a teacher or a guide, who can assist and support with that as well.
So there is a sequence, a special sequence called awakening of the senses. So you basically go from your head to your toes and you kind of like just use tapping and whatever you use. And it's really kind of, you can make it as 5 minutes, you can make it as 15 minutes. And afterwards you feel your cells are kind of like, okay, they are ready. And that makes you more alert in your own mind. Most of the time our body is tired too, but I feel we are more tired in our mind because we're thinking too much, we're overthinking, or we have so much to do where we need to juggle kids and whatever. And like kind of, then we can't. And now I need to focus on myself. I'm like kind of, I'm still out in this world. How can I do this? And that kind of like helps to center yourself and to be ready for that movement.
Yeah. I mean, you may have actually just answered this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What about this particular practice do you think is special for women at our age, right? I'm 53. I don't know how old you are, but like, women in midlife, menopausal. What about this practice is so good for women at this age?
So let me speak about my experience, and then maybe it answers that question, because I mean, like I said, I always was active. I was kind of like running. I did ride my bike and all of that. And I tried Pilates. That kind of like was the closest, which I liked a lot. And then I kind of like dropped down. Too much to do, kids and job and finding whatever. And then I just like kind of, I was always the last in the chain who was doing something for myself. So I feel with this, how do I start? Oh, I don't want to go to the gym because I don't feel I belong there. I don't want to go to the yoga studio because everybody is so advanced and fancy, and like kind of Pilates the same. I feel like kind of even pressing, I don't have that much muscle memory again, and all of this. So I feel it's a good starting point, like kind of to go back into a movement, into, like you say at the beginning, into a different movement, because most of the people moved at some point in their life, and they kind of just wanted to go back, but they don't know how to. And on the other hand, if you were active, maybe you feel you do this, but you don't feel that joy anymore. It's a shift. So it's feel the juiciness of a different type of movement. Feel muscles where you feel, oh, I have muscles there too. I can engage them. I can use them, because it's not about, for abdominal work, most of the time it's also how do you sink your sternum? How do you connect with your rib cage? If you don't connect to your rib cage, if you don't have the right breathing, it's harder to do abdominal work. So if you have these tools, you kind of like, it's almost always opening up a book, and you have 2 pages. And before you would just like kind of, okay, it's that page. And now you open it up. It's like, kind of, oh, it's a whole different story, because it's all connected. Page 1 and page 2 are connected. I don't know if this makes sense. It's like kind of an answering your question.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like how you presented that even if someone has gotten out of a movement practice, that this is a good way to get back in. Like if I'm in a place in my life where I'm like, I don't want to go to the gym, I don't want to go to yoga, I don't want to, like, this is a great way to re-engage the body, to re-engage the mind, to come back into movement practice. And even if you do already have movement, like we spoke about before, this is a different way to engage the body than quote unquote regular exercise, right?
Yeah, and it might be something, kind of like, I know I have some yogis in my class, but like kind of, they are more if they have an understanding, because they like the breathing and they like, it's so simple, but I never think about that how effectful this can be. And like you say, just from sitting upright, and just kind of like from, how can I release my shoulders? How can I create more space in my neck by just tilting the chin to the chest? It's like kind of, okay, then I can find some release. I'm not looking down, I'm like tilting it more. And these little tiny things in the everyday life, and then feel, oh, I can make this as a practice, and I can still have I'm feeling strong. So I will do for sure for a beginner different exercises than what I will do for an advanced mover. Right. Because but that's why I can spend an hour on the stool, and it sounds totally boring, but that's what it is at the beginning. And it's not boring at all, because it's almost being curious and going back to your own body. And just kind of like, what is it? It's not about how I look like. It's not about how many muscles I have, and if I have a bikini body or not. That's what I feel for a lot of women in their menopause, when they gain weight and so on. They feel so frustrated that they give up on, I don't want it to move because I don't like my body.
That's such a crucial point, is no matter what is going on visually with the body, it's still so important for women at all ages, and especially important at women at this age, to have that connection. If they've lost the connection, to reconnect. If there is connection there, to deepen the connection, right? Like,
Beautifully said.
because it is so, because our bodies are our wisdom keepers. That's where intuition is. That's where our wisdom is held. My mind, as it's funny, I was just saying this on another episode yesterday. My mind can make up all sorts of stories and bullshit and twist things around and like wreak all sorts of havoc, right? I can just
100%. Yeah.
think my way into all sort of dumbass scenarios and crazy stories, but my body doesn't lie. Like,
No.
it is truth. And when I can move and develop these practices that you're speaking of, whether it's gyrokinesis or anything else, that I can tap into my own truth and my own wisdom, and it's in my body, and where the intuition lives. And then again, like I was speaking about earlier, you can start to understand your own language and what is truth for you, because our body is sending us messages. But if there's too much noise in the mind, in the brain, and like you were speaking to before, the overthinking, the overwhelm, all of that, if there's too much noise, I'm not going to be able to hear it. And we're also not taught how to listen and how to hear the messages of our body. So that's what we're all doing out here, in my opinion. Like, my perspective is that that's what you and me and so many of us are out there doing, is saying, hey, guys, women, let's listen to your own wisdom. It's coming from your body. Tap in. We've got this head up thing. Like, we know how to do that. We've got that all day long.
We've taught that perfectly. Yeah.
Yep. Coming from the chin down, get into the body. That's where the brilliance is. That's where life is. And especially, like you were speaking to before, that space between the navel and the pubic bone, where all creativity lives. That's where the creative fire comes from. That's where our power comes from. I can talk about the pelvic bowl. Like, we can talk about that for days. But like, that's a whole different conversation. But it truly is. And being able to come from that place. And that's why I think this practice is so fascinating, because it is originating with spine. It is originating from center. It is about creating space. It's about creating flow, and the focus on that root area of the body as the creative center. So
and
it's just fascinating.
And having both, right? It's kind of like, you can be in your like kind of spaciousness and like kind of see kind of fairy tales and whatever. But if you're not grounded, it doesn't mean you need to have both. You need to have the connection. And that's why the grounding is so important. I mean, like kind of, I have 2 or 3 dancers in my practice, and the movement is beautiful, but they're not grounded. They kind of like were like, and feet, it's so important to be with your whole foot on the floor, kind of like to walk barefoot and all of this. We don't need to get into that, but it's, and that you kind of like, this is my anchor, the feet, and like kind of, this is where it's going from. It's like kind of a tree. You need strong roots. Otherwise there comes a strong wind and whatever, and you're blown away. So that's kind of like what it is. So you need the whole connection with it.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. I'm curious, do you have other, as a menopause healing coach, right? Do you have other tools, other practices, either around gyrokinesis or anything else that you have found that really helped you through this period and brought you to a different place than you were, 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago?
That's kind of like, let me look into my toolbox.
Yeah.
So that's a good question. So definitely for me, it's my meditation practice. And like you say, I had a hard time I did it for a while, very kind of strict, laying down or sitting down, and 10, 15 minutes and even longer, blah, 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 and all of this. And then I found, but like you say, it's moving meditation. Sometimes it's just when you cook, you can be in a meditative state, but make it really being present. I constantly need to remind myself, be in this present moment, even if it's cooking, even if it's washing the dishes. something simple as that, really kind of simplify. And I feel it's the simplifying. This makes me more who I am now, and I feel I nourish more my inner wisdom. It's sometimes hard in this society that you feel like, I have wisdom to offer. You can't pay for that. You can't go to school for that, but that's what it's called life when we're in our 50s, right? That's kind of like what makes us who we are. And so I have this, and I'm journaling, and I always, in my session, I usually kind of start with always a little bit, it's not a poem, but it's a little bit of reading to kind of like, you can forget about it, or you can think about it, and you can sit later with it, and you can come back to it. So, and also what I'm doing is more of, I'm not sure if I wanted to kind of like say this here, because it's, we have our trauma and what we have, and connect to our inner children. Trauma is such a big word, and nowadays it's kind of like, it's thrown out everywhere, but it doesn't have to be big. And I don't like it actually very much, that word, but we have a lot what we stored in our cells. So just by moving, just by breathing, you can shift that. But that doesn't mean that you're connected to your inner child more. But it means, when I for myself, if I feel my areas of pain, I have my little triggers. And you said it before very beautifully. It's like, kind of, what does pain really mean? It's pay attention inward now. And it's not your enemy. Pain is not nasty. Pain is an alarm signal. Pain is like the siren, which you better listen to. And it's not bad. It's just to protect you. So I have this method, kind of like, it's called IFS, Internal Family System. And it was Richard Schwartz was the inventor of it. He's a psychologist. And it's really beautifully and simple. And as a practitioner, I'm not an IFS practitioner, but I'm kind of like being in groups where I study it. And I'm doing it for myself too. And it's really beautiful to learn to create space for all parts of you, even the nasty parts, even this kind of like, I hate that. This is always holding me back. This is this. And especially, it's that most of the times is this negative self-talk. So to listen to that, and to kind of like, what does it have to say? What is deeper in there? And then find, most of the times we are overwhelmed with lots of things. Why are we this? And it's kind of like, it's a whole different world, where when sometimes I have a dear client, which I'm teaching now since 5 years, and before I saw her in person in Pittsburgh, sometimes I feel like, kind of, no, we need to sit down and we really need to have a conversation with your parts. And it's not like kind of me having this, it's her having this. I'm just holding the space, and I'm just throwing questions in, and whatever it is. So that really helped me to on another level, not just on the body, but to connect the dots with each other. Yeah, that was a long answer for your little question.
It's not a little question. Right? Well, and I'm really grateful that you spoke to that, because I do think it's important. It's important to do that inner work, and movement along with that inner work, parts work, if people are familiar with that. The parts of ourselves, the protector, I have a big protector, right? And there's a lot of different parts of us that a lot of times I think that we think we need to get rid of, or we need to quiet down, or we need to clean out. Like, oh, that's that part of me, that's the angry part, and I don't like that part, so I need to do all the work to clear it. Right?
We need,
but whatever
and
you do for
having...
A makes A more real. Like, if you have A and B, whatever you're doing for A makes A more real. So for me, it's been a process in my own life, right? Like you were just speaking to, of, wait a minute, instead of trying to eliminate and destroy, which is how our society thinks that you deal with, anything, it's eliminate, fight, and destroy, right?
Yes.
Instead of that, because that doesn't seem to be working all that well, how about alchemy? How about befriending? How about all of me belongs? and being able to welcome all the parts and to create a dance, right? And for me, and like what you're talking about, that's where physical movement can come in and can bring up some of these things. If you're feeling stuck or sluggish or this or that, and you start to move your body and then pay attention to what arises. And then if something comes out of that, if there's an angry feeling that comes out, or if there's a protector part, or frustration or disappointment or sadness or joy or whatever might arise, when you start to move that blocked energy around, befriend it, invite it, sit with it, be with it, and alchemize all of it together and create that dance. And then because there's purpose there, right? There's purpose in the light and there's purpose in the dark. So it's, yeah, I think that's a beautiful insight to have around, yes, there's the movement. Yes, there's this, and what you're saying is also doing that inner work of of
Yeah,
being with
and you,
yourself emotionally.
oh yeah, and you never kind of like you never will be fixed. I
Yeah.
think it's like kind of our society thinks like kind of, oh, I've done all of that and that. Why am I still feeling this? No, it's not like kind of, it's then you're dead. If you're fixed, then you're dead. It's like kind of, that's not what life is. Life is kind of like all of that. Like you say beautifully, it's dark and light. It's all of that. And I think that's what I personally had to relearn. It's okay to have all of that. And it's like kind of, how can I, in all of this whirlwind, how can I be just kind of like by myself, and how can I be as calm as it's possible and still kind of like see all of this? And that's kind of like, by the way, what Richard Schwartz called the capital self. It's the knowledge we all have. It's that what you said. It's like kind of, we know all of that. And you're not a healer, I'm not a healer. We're just offering and kind of like spread it out, and whatever kind of like works out for the people, for the woman, for the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you work with people? I know that you there's in-person work, and can you also work over video? Can you, like, how does this work in your practice?
So you're right. So I'm, like I say, the Charleston people who are listening to that, they kind of like contact me and they can come in person. It's like kind of, it's for gyrokinesis, it's 101 or it's a group class. So, and for gyrotonic, it's like I have a little studio in my own house. So that's kind of like a 101 class for sure, where people come in person. And for the rest of the people who can't come, it's like kind of, I'm offering Zoom classes. So it's I'm trying to use and it's the beauty of Zoom and the curse of Zoom. So when I was certified, like kind of COVID hit and I couldn't teach in person. So that's kind of like, it's weird for me. I'm the opposite. I taught so many Zoom classes that now coming back in person, it's so different and it's so beautiful. It's like kind of, oh, wait a minute, what's that new world? So and it's kind of, I would say, the ideal kind of number of people on Zoom so I can be in good service is, for me, it's kind of like 5 people, because you have all those the little squares and you wanted to kind of like see. And I'm not saying correcting, but I wanted to observe and see where people are and wanted to give them the feedback they need. So yeah, and it's, you might not get it in first place. That's kind of like, you have to be really patient. And I feel nowadays people want to have a quick fix. They try this and then, oh, I don't like it, it's okay, I don't try it again. For me personally, I feel I didn't fall in love in first place, and I kind of like cut off, and then I came back, and then the teacher training was offered and all of that, and then I kind of come into that. So for me, it's more, I feel at least try it 4 times to kind of like see, because every time the movement itself might be different. It might be the same, but your body is different every time, and you can integrate every time different things.
And that's why we call it a practice.
Agree.
Right? Like,
yeah,
there's no perfection. And I
No.
love what you just said. Like, every time I come to something, my body is different. The movement might be the same, the framework might be the same, but on any given day, I'm a different human. my body feels different. My body chemistry is different. My psychological state is different. Everything is different from day to day. So really
Yeah.
paying attention to that and being with that.
Yeah, and I have, like I say, I have my long-term clients, and I have like a specific one. She was very restricted. She barely could lift her arms, like kind of behind her head. So like kind of I got her there where there is a whole area where you just use your arms. So you use a lot of your arms, you use a lot of your shoulders. I mean, and then it took her probably a year. I kind of, and she was very kind of like consistent. And she said now that she's not time wise, she could make it. And she said like, I miss you because I know all the movement, but I'm not doing it because you're not there, you know? So it's really be patient, I feel, and be curious, stay curious about that practice. That's what I can, and that comes back to that, what you said at the beginning, slowing down. That's kind of like what it is. I feel like kind of, I go to yoga, I go to hot yoga, I go to this, and I go to this. It's overwhelming. It's not, I'm not saying that people shouldn't do it. It's like kind of, it's everybody's business. If you like it, that's great. But find something which you have as an anchor.
Yeah, I love that. An anchor, curiosity and anchoring.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, Daniela, thank you so much again for your time and for educating us about gyrokinesis and all this beautiful work and how it's helped you in your midlife menopausal journey. It sounds like it sounds like
I like
gorgeous. Yeah, it really does sound like a gorgeous, gorgeous practice and something that can be really beneficial and grounding, like you said.
Thank
too.
you very much. Yes.
And how can people find you? Where can we find you?
So my website is www.menopausehealing.com. MENOPAUSEHEALING. And you can find me on Instagram. It's my menopause. How do you say it in English?
The underscore. And by the way, you're German.
I'm
correct?
German, yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of
I'm sure people are like, where is she from? She has an accent. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
you're German. You live in the United
German.
States. Great.
Yeah, I'm living here since 11 years. It's right.
Okay, great.
So it's menopause underscore healing.
Yes, on Instagram. And I'm going to link all of this in the show notes so people can contact you.
That's right. And I can also give my cell phone number so people can shoot me a text message and can ask questions and contact me there. And I don't know, like kind of, do we still have time a little bit of
sure, absolutely.
teasing people of what I'm offering in next year?
Yes, dude, tease away.
So I'm creating right now a 4 weeks workshop where it's once a week movement method and gyrokinesis, and also creating a support group, especially for menopause healing women who kind of like feel that they're kind of lost. I mean, I felt lost for a while, and that they find, I don't want to go back to the studio, or I don't know. And I wanted to be maybe surrounded more by like-minded people. And so I'm creating this 4 weeks workshop, and it's either kind of like, it's definitely over Zoom. So you can join from all over the US. And I will also have a recorded part, and I will have also a supportive part where each other can connect and reconnect.
Fantastic. And that's going to be starting sometime in the beginning of the year, right?
Yes, that will be starting kind of like somewhere January, February. So look out for that.
Yes. So if anyone is interested, then they should contact you, either go on your website or direct message you on Instagram, which will put all that stuff in the show notes. And and how about email? Can they email you?
Yeah, it's like kind of menopausehealing@outlook.com.
Okay. And I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, I will send it all to you. So like kind of, it's like kind of, okay, I don't want to get it wrong, what I have, all these emails, contact.
Sure, absolutely. No, we'll put all that in the show notes. And so if anyone's interested in exploring gyrokinesis in this form of movement at the first of the year in a group format, which I'm always really a huge proponent of doing things of this nature.
it's a big, it's a commitment what you have to do, but I feel this 4 weeks gives you a little bit more insight, and we meet once a week. So you have this, okay, next week is it again? And you might be curious about like, oh, I can move at home. I have this question. So it's more than, oh, I tried once and then, I don't know. But still, I mean, I'm offering also group classes if whatever somebody is from, like, let's say from Colorado, and like, oh, I have these 3 girlfriends and they're interested. Do you just offer, I don't want to do that group, that workshop. So do you offer a group class, or do you have a existing group, and can I join there? So I definitely have groups. And the best way to contact me there is like over Instagram, or send me an email or a text.
Okay, great.
And to ask about that. That's the easiest way to do.
Great. Wonderful.
Thank you so much,
Daniela.
Andy. It was a lot of joy and like a lot of like back and forth. And I feel the energy is sparkling around us.
Yes, me too. And I love your beautiful smile. And if you're with this on audio, you should go check it out on YouTube as well and get the visuals. But thank you again, Daniela. I hope you have a beautiful day, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Angie. You have a good day too. A wonderful day.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Daniela. And I do hope you try that one simple thing we talked about to shift your energy. Who knew sitting up straight and adjusting your posture could do so much? I think I'm going to actually do it right now because I'm slumping at my desk. And please also subscribe to the podcast and leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your shows. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to see these conversations. And please share with your friends. And follow me, Angie.bird, on Instagram. This will help the show gain momentum and our sisters out there who are also looking to bring some magic and mayhem into their lives as well.